What is up, cool cats of the interwebs? It is your girl Haley back at it again with another episode of the pre-review crew. Now today is a special episode because we are talking about the acquisition or Microsoft buying Activision/Blizzard. It's huge when it was announced. It's definitely shook the gaming industry and the gaming world, and I'm pretty sure everybody's heads exploded at the price tag that they had purchased them for. But before we get into that, let me speak about who I have on our couch. As usual, it's the favorite guys. It's your guy Brennan.
Hello.
And we have Mike.
What's up?
So we are going to roll right into this. If you don't know, well, now you know. We are going to tell you that Microsoft purchased Activision-Blizzard for $70 billion. You heard it right. The big 70 with a capital B. Now, let's talk about our thoughts on this really fast. When this was first announced, what did you guys think?
At first, I was a little surprised just because of the clout that Activision-Blizzard has. Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Overwatch. So I was a little surprised at first. But now that I'm thinking about it, just the way that the company, has been going the past few months with all these allegations of abuse and stuff like that, it kind of doesn't surprise me that a bigger company came in, bought it, and now they're probably, knowing Microsoft, they're going to come in, fix things, and help, Activision Blizzard, like the Phoenix, come up again.
Yeah, so I guess really quick, also kind of surprised that they had picked Activision Blizzard because, as Mike said, they've been under heavy scrutiny as of late. But I guess part of me is optimistically thinking, well, maybe they think they can clean up house and act as quality assurance, because we've seen titles in the past just be completely flopped by them, mainly looking at Warcraft Reforged. But like a TLDR is, I'm a fence sitter on this one. I really don't know if it's a good or bad thing. There's a lot of points for both. We'll just have to wait and see what actually happens. Like, there's a lot of speculation going on here, and I don't really know if there's a concrete answer. All I know is that it can't possibly be as bad as EA buying out other companies and sending them to their grave. Like, I'm just hoping that that's not going to be the case, and it probably won't. It probably won't. I mean, the EA is notorious for that, and their track record is way too high, but I don't see Microsoft destroying these, Activision Blizzard, just as I don't see Sony destroying Bungie, but we'll get to that later. So I don't really have feelings one way or the other.
I'm on the fence with Brennan, in all honesty. I'm very curious to see where this will go. At first I was just like, oh my god, like, what is going on? And then I was sitting there like, what does this mean? What does this mean for Activision and Blizzard? What does this mean for other companies? What does this mean for Sony? Because I mean, right now they have exclusive rights to Call of Duty, so what's gonna go on with that? And all the other companies or small, studios that are underneath the Activision Blizzard umbrella, what does this mean for them? So right now I'm curious.
Well, what surprised me is Microsoft did say they're going to honor all contracts that Activision Blizzard had with other studios, including Sony.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point to bring up, and I wanted to get into that later just because what happens when those contracts won't run out?
Yeah.
And that's more of like a speculation thing because right now we don't know. We don't know what those contracts even say to begin with. So it's more so us just throwing ideas in the air going, well, what the fuck is going to happen? And what does any of this mean? And we'll talk about what it means. But yeah, $70 billion. The massive amounts of things that I could buy for $70 billion and still have lots of money left over. But anyway, so after they bought Activision, and everybody's heads exploded. As Mike brought up, Phil Spencer said that they were going to honor all existing contracts. We'll talk about what we're going to speculate on what we think is going to happen a little bit later on when those contracts expire. So, next, sort of in this timeline of events, Sony did put out a statement, and after we sit here and scroll through this really fast. Okay. So Phil Spencer stated, obviously, they are going to continue honoring all contracts, and basically Sony was like, cool, thanks. Sort of what we expected. Great.
I'm sure if Phil Spencer came out and said, "Oh, by the way, all contracts that we've had are going to be, null and void," I'm pretty sure Sony would have um, gone for the jugular. Like they would have been really, really pissed off, and this would have been way more controversial than it's seeming to be right now.
They would have made it into a new Ace Attorney game.
Basically, then Nintendo's got to jump in because they own that shit.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't surprise me. I mean, Sony's. What more can Sony say in reality? Like,
Yeah.
they expect all contracts to be held up. I mean, they're contracts. What is Sony or Microsoft going to do? Just buy their way out of them? Yeah, sure they could, but what's the point in that? In all honesty, then you're just going to get players upset with you. You're just going to make everybody mad. Hell, it's going to be 10 times the backlash they received when they said that the Xbox One or whatever it was had to be online all the time. I forget which one
Oh,
it was.
I think it was the Series X.
Yeah, it was one of them, but it was like
I,
the backlash that they got from that was crazy. So like this would just be 10 times that, because I mean, putting we'll just talk about Call of Duty for a second. Keeping Call of Duty on all consoles, like, mad amounts of money, because they're also going to get all the in-game purchases, and that's huge.
and then I'm sure Sony will have to cut them a small check for all the sales they get of Call of Duty on PlayStation consoles.
Exactly. So it's like, why would you take that off? But also, like, why buy Activision Blizzard in the first place?
Um, I'm thinking Microsoft probably, I think they know what they're doing when it comes to computers and games because they bought ZeniMax. When did they buy ZeniMax? Like a year and a half ago.
Oh, let me Google, but continue with your thought.
Yeah, they bought ZeniMax. That was a big thing because that's Elder Scrolls, that's Starfield, that's Fallout. Those are all big name games, and now they're buying Activision Blizzard. I think they're kind of and we'll probably talk about this later. When it comes to monopolies, but I think they're trying to be the big dogs. On the block right now, and it's gonna work because these are all popular franchises, and if these are all on all consoles and whatnot, then they're going to make a lot of money, and that's from a business point, in my opinion, really really good for them.
It was published on September 21st, 2020, that Microsoft acquired ZeniMax Media and its game publisher, Bethesda.
Yeah. So both of these, I think, for Microsoft are incredibly smart moves. It's just I know a lot of people are scared now because Microsoft owns two of the biggest companies out there right now.
My personal theory on this, and again, pure speculation, I have to make that very clear. I mean, obviously, there's a division of content now. Like, I feel like the console wars has almost taken a turn for the content wars now, where like Microsoft hadn't really had any exclusive titles for the past couple years. Nothing big and heavy. Obviously, the last big one they had is Halo, right? Um, and I'm grouping Xbox and PC together when I say that. There seems to be a lot of crossover from that nowadays, which as a PC owner I appreciate, but obviously anyone that doesn't have a PC or an Xbox, they'll probably be a little scared. But Sony and Nintendo have been killing it in the exclusive department for years, right? Like That's the biggest draw and the biggest reason for you to buy a PlayStation. If you want to play Spider-Man, you have to buy a PlayStation. If you want to play Pokemon, you have to buy a Switch. Microsoft doesn't really have many heavy-hitting titles like that outside of Halo, and honestly, ever since 343 took over with Halo 4 and 5, I don't really think anyone was caring too much, if you catch my drift. But I really believe that Microsoft is trying to get its stake in the game. You know, for a long time, they were working more with consumer friendly practices, namely the Game Pass, which has become extremely popular. One of the articles that we read had mentioned that it makes over 400 million US dollars in monthly revenue alone, as it has 25 million users at $16 a month. This is from Brendan Hoig at The Conversation. Oh, sorry if I mispronounced that name. Along with the sort of merging of Xbox and PC titles, you know. So now that Microsoft sort of understands that exclusives are really what seem to be driving a lot of people to buy your console, I think that Microsoft buying these heavy hitting companies and then making their games exclusive, you know, like Elder Scrolls 6 might be an exclusive. And if it is, oh my goodness, people will be buying Xboxes just to play that game alone. Starfield's a different story, but Elder Scrolls 6, if I didn't have a PC, I'd be buying an Xbox right now. Not even kidding. Like, and that's what I truly believe they're going for. And same thing with Activision Blizzard. Whether or not Call of Duty will follow that trend, and I really don't think it will, like we mentioned before. There'd be riot in the streets if that were to happen. I think that Call of Duty's too big to expect people that are on PlayStation to just drop their PlayStation buy a an Xbox for that. You know, there has to be some level of brand loyalty for these customers to, you know, sort of get their pitchforks out if that were to happen. It's a possibility. I don't think it's likely, but I really do think that the reason they bought this is to fill in that exclusive gap that they haven't been hitting in the past couple of years. It kind of puts them back on the same playing field as Sony and Nintendo in terms of reasons to buy your console. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm very curious to know when Sony, or not Sony, when Microsoft makes something exclusive, will it be, now this is going forward, will it be just Xbox exclusive, or is it going to be Xbox PC exclusive?
When the Series X was coming out, Phil Spencer did say anything exclusive to Xbox will be released on both Xbox and PC.
Interesting.
So Elder
Yeah.
Scrolls 6, if it's an Xbox exclusive, it will come to PC. But
I feel.
right
Oh,
now, it's hard to build a PC. It's
Yeah.
much easier to get an Xbox.
yeah.
Um, so Elder Scroll, if things, I don't know, Elder Scroll 6 is coming out. It might come out in the next year. It might come out the next 5 years. I'm not sure. If building a PC is still super expensive when that game comes out, and people have to choose, okay, I want to play Elder Scroll 6. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Then, like Brendan said, they'll be able to sell consoles just off of that.
Right.
And
Honestly, sorry to cut you off, Haley, but
you're
that's
good.
I think that's actually a really, really, really good point. Especially since Microsoft they build computers, they sort of know how difficult it is to build said computer right now. Mainly, just I feel like it's just because the graphics card market and Microsoft doesn't really have a stake in that, but they know what that's like. So they, like Mike said, they know people will buy Xboxes if they can't build a PC, and that's much more likely. So that holds a lot of water. I think that's really smart on their part looking forward.
Hmm.
But if you look at that, that also shows that Microsoft seems to just want their hand in everything. They want their hand in gaming, they want their hands in games and publishing and developing, and they already have their hands in computers and PC. You want to run a game, you run it on Windows.
Hmm.
Because you can't run that shit on fucking Macs. You run it on fucking Windows. So they got you there too, bud. I mean, unless you do
Yeah.
that illegally. But who does that? Because it's like totally illegal. But still, it's like they got you there. So they literally have their hand in everything.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely hard to sort of understand the full repercussions of Microsoft specifically. I mean, and one of the articles that we read sort of touched upon this. It was Andy Chalk by PC Gamer. This was more in terms of like antitrust. You know, if the oh my goodness, the SEC was to investigate how likely they would, how likely it would be to trigger any kind of antitrust action. And a quote from here is the general consensus right now is that it's unlikely to trigger antitrust action because it's a vertical transaction, a larger company purchasing a smaller one that performs an essentially different function. And so it's a vertical transaction because Microsoft's main revenue drivers do not come from gaming, right? Like a lot of it comes from their operating systems, their computers, any kind of software and hardware that they make. Sure, they make games, but that's a very small part of what they do. And so that doesn't necessarily compete with other developers within that sphere. Does that make sense? I mean, it made sense when this guy explained it when he was talking to a lawyer, but I mean, they do a lot more than create and produce games. They offer a whole host of different products and services. Whereas if you look at a lot of these other buyouts and mergers, when Activision and Blizzard merged, both of those are both gaming developers and publishers. Take Two and Zynga, again, they're both developers and publishers. Sony and Bungie. But this is where it gets a little, I guess, confusing. Is it's not the parent company Sony buying out Bungie. I mean, I suppose it is in a way, but they made it sort of clear in whatever I read that it was Sony Interactive Entertainment, which I mean may also be similar, but I'm not really sure. You know what I mean? I'm not exactly sure if this is considered, a monopoly and having them have their stake in everything because buyouts and mergers really aren't like a rare thing, like they happen a lot. I think it's just surprising that the number is this high, right? I think that that's why people are looking at this with such a heavy eye is because of that 68.7 billion, like when Microsoft bought out Bungie, or excuse me, when Microsoft bought out Mojang in 2014 for 2.5 billion, everyone was like, "Wow, that's a lot of money for a game about blocks." But now we're looking at this, 8 years later, going, "Holy shit, $68 billion!" I don't really think anyone's outside of the gaming industry is looking at it any more than just the number. You know what I mean? I don't know where I was going with that. All I guess what I'm trying to say is that buyouts and mergers, like they happen fairly often, and unless you're EA, there's really nothing bad that comes out of it. I mean, Activision-Blizzard has been fairly successful. Square Enix has been fairly successful since their merger in 2002, which is only for 764 million. I mean, that's chump change compared to what these numbers are looking like today. But I mean, if we zoom out, the economy really only goes up, right? Like, especially in the past couple of years alone, the gaming industry has made so much more money comparatively as it has a couple of years ago. So that it almost kind of makes sense that these companies are worth more and thus the buyouts are getting bigger, right? Like, you buy a piece of art, you're not going to sell it for less than what you bought it for, right? Art is sort of subjective in that way. You're allowed to sort of do that. With the gaming industry having the numbers that it has recently, the $68 billion doesn't really come across as that strange. Yes, it's a little high, but Activision Blizzard, they were merged for $18.9 billion in 2008. When Take Two bought Zynga, it was $12.7 billion earlier this year. You know what I mean? So, like, even within that gap of time, the numbers are still relatively floating around the same. And even Microsoft bought out Mojang for $2.5 billion in 2014, and then they bought ZeniMax Media for $7.5 billion in September 2020. No one really bat an eye. I mean, they did because of the repercussions that it was going to have, but I don't really think anyone really cared about that number because it sort of floated within the average, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like this is getting a lot of attention. It's mainly just because of the number. I just wanted to shout out numbers that I wrote on this piece of paper that I have in front of me.
But I'm gonna step away from video games for a second here. The reason the number didn't surprise me was looking at Disney. They bought Fox for $71 billion. AT&T bought Time Warner for 85. Um, and so I think it's just as time goes on, these mergers are just getting more and more and more expensive because like you mentioned, I'm looking for the numbers right here. When they bought Mojang, it was only 2.5 billion. That was almost 8 years ago. And if you look at like the trend of stuff being bought, it's just getting more and more expensive. Um, I probably have to say it's partially because of the economy. But
Yeah.
for video games, yes, this is expensive. But if you take a step back and look at it from the outside, this is just another big merger that we've seen happen in the past 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're completely right. And I guess that's also why I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean the number is big, but it's also just like this happens all the time, whether people realize it or not. And I don't know, can we think of any buyouts or mergers that have gone wrong outside of EA just destroying multiple studios, BioWare specifically? Um,
R.I.P.
uh, yeah, right. Like
Yeah.
that's the biggest one that comes to my mind. It's just wow, they ran BioWare to the ground. Even Maxis. When EA bought Maxis, the people that made The Sims originally, I was so upset because, especially then with hindsight, I'm even more upset. Right, like the Sims games don't quite have the magic that they used to have, in my opinion. So, but outside of EA, I can't really see you know, anything bad necessarily. I guess maybe you can argue that the Activision Blizzard merger might not have been good for company culture, but I guess that's kind of hard to say, who the frat boy mentality and culture came from. Was it Activision or was it Blizzard always like that? You know what I mean? And I want to maybe say that Blizzard might have been always like that, but it's hard to say. You know what I mean?
I feel like, at least regarding their culture, we're never really going to find out unless we actually hear it from people who work there, and it doesn't really seem like anybody wants to talk.
Yeah, and especially because it happened in 2008, you'd have to find someone that obviously worked there before then, and time is flying really fast. 2008 was a long time ago, sadly. Makes you force your own mortality, but yeah, that's like you said, it's hard to gauge that. But other than that, though, like I don't know, a lot of people I feel like a lot of people are sort of scared. One of these articles that we went mentioned a possibility to stifle creativity and innovation, but uh, they also kind of walked back on that statement, saying that another quote from the conversation in her book Global Games, researcher Afriker, oh god, I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. She estimated that in 2015, the top 10 video game companies accounted for 49% of the entire industry's revenue. So I don't, and along with the article, I don't necessarily think that unlike Disney buying everything and possibly stifling creativity there, I don't necessarily see that happening here. Especially since, you know, the other 51% of the entire industry's revenue come from a multitude of different smaller companies, indie developers, which are typically the ones driving the creativity and innovation anyway. So again, I feel like the only real downside of this is that Xbox just makes a couple more exclusives. And that's it. I mean, sure that's scary in the long term, but at the same time it's like how is that any different from what Sony and Nintendo have been doing since they've been created, right? Like
Decades.
Pokemon has never been on another console outside of Nintendo stuff ever. Like no, and no one's gonna get mad about that, right? I mean, if at some point, they were always on Nintendo consoles and then one day they swapped to Xbox, I hope will never happen. Obviously, people would get upset. I can see that, but I don't I don't see Microsoft coming up with a new IP and saying it's an Xbox exclusive. And that's what Xbox has to do to survive in this atmosphere. Like I was talking about before, Sony and Nintendo, their a lot of their money comes from exclusives. I read one headline a couple days ago that Spider-Man is what had saved Sony from a bad quarter. Their one exclusive title saved them from a bad quarter. Like, if that's the power of an exclusive, then of course Microsoft wants to hop on that bandwagon. Of course. And we even see Sony trying to hop on the Game Pass bandwagon to little to no effect, but I really hope that this just sort of drives healthy competition as opposed to destroying said competition. I I I see that happening. I see Sony wanting and Nintendo wanting to step up the quality of their games so that they can sort of compete with the exclusiveness that Xbox is going for.
And I think that's a good thing for any kind of competition, whether it's movies, TV, or video games. When you got a bunch of different players, in video games, you got Tencent, you got Microsoft, you got Sony, you got EA, you got Nintendo. It's healthy competition when one of those, main companies steps up their game and, does something like what Microsoft did, because now the other companies are like, oh shit, now we got to step up and we got to get better. Otherwise, we're going to be left in the dust. So Microsoft, now that Microsoft owns Activision, Sony and Nintendo got to step up. Oh, not Nintendo. Nintendo's never going to have to step up to anybody. But these other companies have to, step up their game, because now it's like, okay, if we don't, Microsoft's going to take over, and they don't want that.
Right. And they already, okay, maybe not already because if we're just looking at the numbers alone, it's not nearly a comparison, but Sony buying out Bungie for $3.6 billion just a couple of days ago. And then even the article that you had linked us before, I feel like Sony is trying to step up their their game and at the same time go into a new direction. Again, with the article that you linked about them wanting to look into TV and film, and perhaps that's the specific reason as to why Sony went after Bungie because they knew of these plans.
I think so there's an somebody had made a pie chart on the gaming subreddit that we can link to, and seemed like it's pretty up to date. But if you look at it, and you sort of compare where Sony would be and where Microsoft would be without the latest acquisition, you can kind of understand why they needed this, because they didn't have much when you compare that to everybody else. So it's sort of like them buying up these studios was like, we need, kind of like how the guys have been saying, we need a way to survive. Because while our other departments bring in money, on the gaming side, we're not really doing much besides the small things we have going on. We need to get bigger. We need to become even on the playing field. So I feel like this purchase has allowed them to acquire multiple studios for one roundabout price instead of having to buy up a whole bunch of different studios for a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, I mean, and Sony has been doing this for the past couple of years. Again, not for the same price, but just recently they bought Blue Point Games, bought House Marquee.
Mm-hmm.
They're securing these studios, and even on Microsoft, they're just looking for more hands on deck, essentially. And part of the reason why I again sort of think that this might be a good thing is that not only if Microsoft cleaning up the company culture at Activision Blizzard is a possibility. It's not an overnight thing. It will take a while. You can't just change a company culture like that overnight. It doesn't happen. But in the meantime, and over the next few years, Microsoft essentially acts as quality assurance as the publisher, right? They have the power to publish these games now. And if they're not up to Microsoft standards, throw them back. We've seen Nintendo do that multiple times. That's why we don't have a new Metroid. We haven't had a new Metroid outside of Metroid Dread in a while. It's because it didn't reach the Nintendo standards. And now Microsoft can do a similar thing with Activision Blizzard games. That way we don't have to deal with another botched WoW expansion or Warcraft 3 Reforged or even something as silly as like the Diablo Immortal handheld mobile game. Like if
Wait, did that
Microsoft had
ever actually come out?
no, I don't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I'm pretty sure it didn't because no one's talked about it. But even if it did, no one will talk about it anyway. So I feel like we would have heard some shit when it released. You know what I mean? Like it would have. Yeah. But the point is that if Microsoft had owned Activision Blizzard at that point, I don't even know if we would have had that. I don't even know if we would have had as many memes as we do now. You know what I mean? But again, that's just me being sort of overly optimistic that they'll act as some sort of quality assurance manager. Um, they might they might do well with that. Although I guess they kind of botched that for Halo 5, am I right? Oh, oh boy.
We're not going to talk about Halo right now. Save it
Halo.
for our
Just
normal
you can
episode.
talk about Halo, just not Halo 5. Halo 5, we're gonna pretend never happened.
Who is
That's like
she?
that.
We don't know her.
That's like treat it like the family treated Harry Potter. Put it in the little closet underneath the stairs.
Exactly. And that's where we're going to end the Halo 5 talk. Anybody remember the last 30 seconds? Because I'm pretty sure we've just been sitting in silence.
I don't know. Someone said Master Chief, and then I forgot what I was talking about.
It was like Men in Black, your minds are erased. But yeah, so I think to wrap up, the general consensus is honestly, I don't know. I'm kind of just like, huh, this happened. This is large. Like, this is important because it seems like Microsoft and Sony have been going back and forth, kind of like, okay, well, it's almost like it's like a volleyball game. They're getting their teams ready. Okay, I'm gonna buy up this company, and then you're gonna buy up that company, and then I'm gonna buy up this company, and it seems like they're gearing up for this massive content battle. Like Brennan said, like it's not a console war anymore because Xbox has placed their games on PC. Sony is getting there, but they still want to lean exclusive. So it's like if you have a PC, you can play your Microsoft games, but you probably have a PlayStation as well because you might like the exclusives that Sony has. So it's just this content war of who can sort of almost bring in the most money, who has their hand in the biggest bucket.
I mean, I guess I suppose it is technically a console war. I mean, because I feel like that was the main drive of the great console wars of the early 2000s into the 2010s. It was like Microsoft's Xbox is better because it has Halo and Gears of War. No, Sony's better because it has an exclusive from that time frame that I can't think of because I didn't own a PlayStation at that time. Metal Gear Solid 4. Um, Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 2. But that was, that was the whole driving point of the console war. So maybe this is just a resurgence of the console war because again, that's what exclusives are at the end of the day. They're a reason to buy your console. So, yeah, I mean, and that's just all this is. And I know that probably sucks for a lot of people who sort of thought that we were past this whole console war thing, and I sort of hate that concept and that word. I think it's really dumb. Because it's really just fanboys throwing shit at each other over absolutely goddamn nothing. It's pretty much the same as the people just being like Coke is better than Pepsi. Shut up. They're both dark carbonated drinks, okay? You nerds, just get over it. One is a little fizzier than the other, okay? It's whatever you're in the mood for, right? I mean, that can boil down to a lot of different things, right? Any kind of dichotomy, oligopoly, if you will. I don't even know. I'm just throwing out big words, hoping that they make sense. It's like an Italian with pasta on the wall. But regardless, I want to believe that the exclusives will drive healthy competition for both of these mainstays. Obviously, as Mike said before, Nintendo is as shitty as they are sometimes, and they can be really, really shitty sometimes. They've been killing it for God knows how long, and they've just been fine, you know. So I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing, but then again, everything that we speculated could become entirely wrong. Microsoft can just keep throwing sexual allegations under the rug, just as Activision Blizzard once did. Microsoft can just buy out more companies and just become the monopoly that people are afraid of. Sony can just kind of shit the bed this year and the next year and just not want to innovate at all. Or they simply go into TV and movies and that flops completely. I don't know. There are so many moving parts with this, and I feel like we haven't really had to think about this on such a big scale. I mean, I guess since the whole Microsoft ZeniMax thing, but I when Microsoft bought Mojang, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Like we got rid of Notch. That shouldn't really do shit anyway. And then he went on Twitter and then just said some dumb shit. Now everyone hates him. So maybe that was a good thing in retrospect. If anything, Microsoft's too
You're
many M
talking so
words.
much right now.
Minecraft has only essentially gotten more popular since then, right? Because I forget Jeb. Now that Jeb's at the helm, they have all the creative freedom in the world, I guess.
And we've gotten a lot of updates for it, in all honesty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it can't be that bad, right? Just looking at their track record, it can't be that bad. They're not EA. They're not, they're just not.
I don't. Okay. Okay. Going on from here on out, I think we should just sort of give our opinions, which is a little bit what we've done. But we've also just been sort of rehashing the news. But I don't think this is bad. It caught me off guard, and I'll say that. Again, I think it's mainly because, like Brennan said earlier, Microsoft needs exclusives to stay alive. And they need something of their own because they don't have that. I mean, look at what God of War did for Sony when God of War released. That was fucking huge. Microsoft needs its God of War. And don't sit here and be like it's Halo. It's not Halo. I'm sorry. It's just not. They need something bigger. And I think with them buying Activision Blizzard, I think they can get that. Especially being that they have Bethesda now. They can definitely get that. It's just a matter of time. Now, again, it's just blindsiding because I think of how big the number is, but look at all the studios that they were able to get and all the games that those studios have produced that are extremely popular. They now have I can't speak. World of Warcraft, and look how much revenue that generates by itself. Even though the last expansion was absolute ass, I didn't like it at all. You still get that monthly subscription. Like, Jesus Lord, Microsoft is raking in the revenue right now. And to them, maybe it's about the money, maybe it's about the content. Again, I still think it's who has their hand in the biggest pot. So I'm just curious as to more so what they're going to do with the studios that they've bought, because those studios haven't, especially Bethesda, they haven't released anything yet under Microsoft. So I'm sort of like, what are we in for? What does this mean that we're going to get? What is Microsoft planning for the games coming out in the future? Because I feel like it's going to be huge. And it's sort of what Microsoft needs, because in the past, things haven't always gone spectacular for them. I mean, look at the past couple, not PAX. PAX? Is that what I'm thinking? Is that the big thing that happens in the summertime?
E3.
Yeah, there we go. Not PAX, E3. God, I get them confused all the time. Look at the past couple E3s that Xbox has had, especially when they said that their console had to be online all the time. There used to be a who won E3, and boy howdy, was it never Microsoft. At least as far as I remember.
I feel like you're right there. I mean, a lot of people were either looking at Nintendo or Sony. You know.
Their eyes were always elsewhere, and I think now Microsoft is like, okay, how do we sort of get everybody's attention? What do we do to get more gamers in our grasp? Because sure, we can get them with Game Pass, sure, we can get them with Halo, sure, we can get them with whatever other game they're coming out on, and people just are going to do it out of convenience. But what are we really going to get people with? And what are we going to get them with that will make them stay with us? Because again, Sony has their exclusive lineup. I mean, personally, that's the reason why I have a PS5 and a PS4 is because of exclusives. So I feel like Microsoft is finally jumping on that bandwagon going, huh, well, we got all this money now. What do we do with it? Well, we buy studios,
Oh
especially
wait,
studios that have
oh,
issues.
hold on. I'm getting a phone call from Silicon Valley, California.
Huh?
Hold on. I have to take this. Hello? Hi, is Phil Spencer? Oh my god. I'm such a huge fan. Wait, how do you know about that? Oh my god. Hold on. I gotta run this. I gotta run this past my friends. Hold on. Hold on. Phil Spencer wants to buy Gamer Juice for $75 billion. We
What?
did it. We did it, guys. Phil Spencer. Oh, hold on. I have it. I didn't mute myself. Sorry, Phil. Okay, muted now. Phil Spencer just told us that he wants to buy Gamer Juice for $75 billion. This is huge. This is huge. I can't even begin to describe how energetic and energized I feel.
Is that
And
because
that's
you
how you'll.
drank a gamer juice?
That's because I drank a whole 64 ounces of Gamer
Oh
Juice
my god.
right before this podcast. Wow, I was joking. That wasn't even Phil Spencer. I don't even have a phone. No one can call me. I don't even have a landline. You gotta get me via email. So, joke's on you. But if he really did, that's how it would feel to drink Gamer Juice all the time. That's the today's episode is sponsored by Gamer Juice. Every episode is sponsored by Gamer Juice. Sorry.
That was really good.
Oh yeah.
I really like that. I'm so sorry. That's really
Sorry.
good.
like that came to me just now.
I
And
was
it's only because of the Gamer Juice. I feel like my good ideas only come from one 64-ounce beverage that sell for $39.79 a can. Or bottle. We're now shipping them in bottles.
eco-friendly
Like
bottles.
eco-friendly bottles. But they taste better in the bottles because they're made with pure cane sugar because we export them from South American countries for a reasonable amount of money, and all of the workers are treated very nicely. We make sure of that with our quality assurance from an anonymous donor with the initials PS. Philip
We
Spencer.
can't give away the name of our mysterious donor. That's all we have to say.
No, we can't. But Gamer Juice. That's it. That's the that's the plug.
Well, thank you to Gamer Juice for sponsoring this episode, the special episode of the pre-review crew.
You're welcome.
So
You're so welcome.
Mike, let's get your sort of roundup opinion on the merger acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like I said earlier, it's gonna drive competition. Just because, well, I'm thinking of Gamer Juice so much right now that I'm like speechless. Uh, but yeah, like I said, it's companies need to step up. This is Microsoft stepping up. They've gone for so long just being the OS company. Everybody who got a PC, runs Windows, and this is them really, overtaking the gaming industry because whenever I thought of the big three, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, to me Microsoft was always kind of lacking. Like Haley said earlier, like E3 would happen and Microsoft would usually be, when people would compare them, the loser of the three. So I think Microsoft needs this because now they can really step up and be, oh, you know what, Sony and Nintendo always win. How about we flex some muscle and we win? And then Sony and Nintendo are going to be like, holy shit, we got to flex some muscle now. So this is just really, now that Microsoft's done this, these other companies, EA, Tencent, Sony, um, Ubisoft, if they don't step up, they're going to get left behind in the dust. So this could just lead to some really good games, and this could lead to some really good content. Hopefully, World of Warcraft, we will get better expansions. Call of Duty, hopefully it becomes a better shooter. I have not liked Call of Duty in like 8 years. So, the upcoming Diablo and Overwatch sequels, hopefully those will be better now. Because, I'm hoping Microsoft really steps up, looks at them and says, no, 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 we're not releasing that trash. We're gonna make this better. We're gonna make this a lot greater than what it could have been.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of like a we'll see moment. We have to basically wait to see what happens in the future. A lot of it, like we said earlier, is just speculation right now. So there's not really much that we can confirm or deny or, actually give facts on besides, well, they fucking bought them for just about $70 billion, and now it's just a waiting game. Now, mind you, I believe it's been said that the deal won't actually close until next summer, I'm pretty sure. We do have an article that states from Bloomberg that sorry, I had to find it, that the FTC is going to be reviewing the deal just to make sure it is legal, to make sure everything was done by the book. The FTC is going to be taking it over from the Justice Department, even though both agencies share responsibility for antitrust reviews. This is coming from the David McLaughlin article from Bloomberg on the FTC investigating it. So we basically just have to wait and see what they say just to make sure that everything is legal. I mean, from the article that we talked about earlier that Brennan mentioned, somebody talked to a lawyer about this and they did say that it is vertical. So, I mean, honestly, I think everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, don't we um did take a look at a funny picture somebody had put up about the merger. Um yeah, in a European country somebody wrote um notice to gamers, Microsoft has bought Activision. Choose your machine carefully. So people are kind of freaking out about this, but like Haley said, it's a time game. We got to just wait, kick back and see. Because when ZeniMax was bought, everybody was like, holy shit, this is going to be so huge. This is going to just totally disrupt the gaming market, and none of that's happened yet.
Yeah,
So
it's been absolute silence on that front for ever now. So
so we just got to kick back and just see what happens.
Basically. In the Bloomberg article, they do say regulators are likely to look closely at how Microsoft's ownership of Activision-Blizzard could harm rivals by limiting their access to the company's biggest games, i.e. making them exclusive, so that you are forced to buy an Xbox or play on PC. Again, I think Microsoft would be shooting themselves in the foot if they go about doing this. Why would you not want to have your hand in everybody else's bowl to get a piece of their coin? And again, yes, Microsoft needs exclusives to stay afloat, but at the same exact time, I believe that they understand that in this day and age, you can do that, but also you can have your cake and eat it too. And I think that's what Microsoft is going to do, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, that sort of wraps up our Microsoft purchasing Activision Blizzard. Now, this recently just came out that Sony has bought Bungie. We talked about this briefly. Again, it seems like everyone's kind of just going, I want them, then I want them, and then I'm buying them. And it seems like they're building up their teams for a content war that will happen very, very soon. Because, ho, howdy, boy, as we've said on our regular episodes of the pre review crew, I 100% believe 2022 is going to be the year of video games, and it's going to be crazy. But briefly to talk about this, well, let's talk about it. So if you don't know, well, now you know. Bungie, according to this article by Brendan St. Clair in the gamesindustry.biz, Bungie will be an independent subsidiary of SIE run by a board of directors consisting of the current CEO and chairman Pete Parsons and the rest of the studio's current management team. Sony has already come out and stated that Bungie will remain a multi-platform studio, as you can tell, because I'm going to assume because of the Microsoft Activision acquisition, Sony basically just wanted to put that to rest as fast as possible, with the option to self-publish and reach players whenever they choose to play. Not surprising there. At present, the studio is working on maintaining Destiny 2, expanding the Destiny franchise, and working on a new IP. Right now, I'm speculating, I don't know if anybody else is, that this potential new IP might be Sony exclusive, mainly because Sony doesn't have that many great exclusive first-person shooters, if at all. So,
Yeah, the last big Sony first person I think was Killzone, if I remember correctly, and
Yeah,
that was quite some time ago.
So it's
that
kind of,
was a launch title for the PlayStation 4, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Jesus.
Who knows? Maybe that's what Bungie's doing is a new Killzone, which would be awesome. I've been waiting for a new Killzone for a few years now, so
I mean, it would sort of make sense. Bungie makes decent first person shooters. Sony needs a first person shooter. Microsoft buys Activision-Blizzard. They need decent exclusive titles. Everyone put your Sherlock hats on and think about it real hard.
Sherlock Hat's always on.
Strapped up and ready to go.
oh my.
I mean, it's again speculation, but it definitely seems like, again, all the more reason for them to be buying up these studios, because they need to fill the holes of where they're lacking. They need to be able to retain their player base. How do they do this? They look at the holes that they need to fill, they toss money at these studios, and they fill those holes. So yeah, but again, this is Sony Interactive Entertainment. That we also had an article that stated that Bungie wants to expand into TV and film. We already know that Sony has their picture studio. They have multiple ties in TV and cinema. So if Bungie wants to make movies or TV shows, going with Sony is sort of the way to do it, because Sony already has those ties. So all they have to do is use Sony's connections and boom, done.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Where and what will they make out of a TV show or a film? God only knows. Why would Bungie want to go that route? I honestly have no clue.
I mean, I don't know. And we were even talking about that before the podcast, like the other gaming franchises that have been turned into movies and or TV shows, including the Last of Us TV series, the forthcoming Uncharted movie, and the reported Twisted Metal TV show, which I hope doesn't come out ever. Um, I am not really sure where these companies are thinking that video game related TV shows and movies are successful, because honestly, in the past, they really haven't been. So I'm not really sure what they think they can do to change that. Hope I'm wrong about that, but I mean, if we've learned anything from anime, we've learned that live action adaptations do not work at all. And who really wants a Destiny TV show, right? Like, That just sounds so weird. Although I think there is a Halo TV show or movie in the works currently.
Comes out
I
in
feel like I
March.
no way.
Yes,
Really?
yes.
Oh my god. I remember people seeing like a picture of Cortana floating around and everyone was like, "What is this? Who's that? It's not Cortana."
Yeah.
So,
At the time of this recording, it's been a few days, but a few days ago they put out a trailer and they said it comes out end of March.
I don't I mean, I'm not sitting here hoping that it's bad. I don't hope anything is bad. But I don't really see it being super successful, right? Um, I feel like a lot of companies are possibly looking at Disney's success recently with their whole we're going to take movies and sort of adapt them into TV shows, a la Mandalorian, WandaVision, etc. But I'm just not sure if video games will have that success. I mean, to me, a video game is successful in its interactivity. It's a lot easier for me to wrap my head around a movie being adapted into a TV show, you know. Although I suppose, something like The Witcher was fairly successful. But again, even The Witcher was based off more on the books rather than the games. The games never ever go over anything that's happened in the first two seasons. Games happen way later, and they had to because when they bought the rights from the author, part of the deal was that they couldn't touch anything that the books had covered. So I don't know. I don't really know who's looking for video game related movies, right? Like, I mean, I suppose there have been smaller bits and pieces of video game related media being adapted into new forms. Like there was a CGI based Halo film, but again, that was based off of one of the books. So again, it's not like it's a new original thing. Um, there was an animated episode of Final Fantasy VII that I just watched a couple days ago, and it was actually kind of baller. That kind of covered the whole, Zack Fair, Sephiroth, Nibelheim, Cloud Strife scenario. But again, these are smaller things that never really picked up and caught on. So I don't know, man. I'm not seeing this Uncharted movie picking up to the point where Bungie's like, oh shit, guys, we gotta make a TV show. You know what I mean? I just don't see it. And I sort of hope that that doesn't happen.
I sort of just I wish we had somebody on the inside. I wish we had somebody on the inside that could be like, "Oh my god, this is what they're planning." Except we don't know. We only have the facts that these companies are buying up these smaller companies, and we can only speculate on why. So I'm sort of sitting here like, of all things, why would Bungie want to get into, outside of just wanting to make money? Why would they want to get into television and movies? Of all things, especially when they're known for video games. And it's like, nobody really like wants a Destiny movie or a TV show. So what else could they potentially bring? Like, yes, we know that they're working on a new IP, but what else could they bring to the table that would actually translate well into a movie or TV show? I don't have
Well,
high hopes.
I don't know how story driven Destiny is. I have not played Destiny since it first came out. Even then, that was kind of story based. So, I mean, Bungie does have experience in doing stories. So maybe they can come up with, sci fi stories for potential Sony films and TV. That's just my speculation, though.
Ah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm very mm, I don't know. I'm just that's kind of how I feel. I the phrase I don't know is how I feel. And it kind of makes me worried. It makes me worried because that means we don't know what we're getting into. We don't know what these companies are going to do. We don't know how to really feel because, well, they haven't really done much of anything. On the Activision Blizzard case, it's like, okay, we'll get these bad guys out of here. Hopefully, something happens to them and they go to jail because they fucking deserve it. And they don't deserve to walk away scot free with lots of money in their pockets after all the people they've hurt. And when it comes to Sony Bungie, it's just like that one kind of just makes me scratch my head because I'm just like, what are you two up to? You got Microsoft over here, like the big kid in the schoolyard, collecting minions, and then you got Sony and Bungie over in the corner kind of scheming, while Nintendo just runs around doing whatever the hell they do because they can't be bothered with anything. So I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, what's the vibe that we're going for? Because I don't know how to feel. Of course, it's not my money, so it has nothing to do with me. But at the same exact time, like, what does this mean? What does this mean for small studios? What does this mean for studios that are the size of Activision Blizzard? Kind of like Ubisoft. Like, what does this mean for anybody and everybody?
Who knows?
Exactly.
Only time will tell.
I was about to say, it's great sages say, only time will tell.
It's mystifying. And I mean, none of us can predict the future. Even Gamer Juice can't give you that type of magical power.
Brennan, get the R&D department to work on that.
Oh, they're already hard at work. Gamer Juice is already making their own TV franchise. We're casting we're gonna cast Willem Dafoe as a janitor working at a hospital, and Adam Driver is going to be a successful doctor man. And after the two of them exchange a glance in the elevator late after work one night, they begin an affair with uh that will change the face of healthcare as we know it.
I thought,
And
what?
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 Oh, this is Gamer Juice's new pitch for our
Oh.
TV show. I didn't tell you about this.
No.
Yes, Willem Dafoe and Adam Driver, and they have a sensual love affair, and then they plan to take out healthcare big pharma from the inside. And there's one scene where Adam Driver's like, I don't know who you are anymore, and Willem Dafoe goes, do you have any idea how much I've sacrificed for this? and then they hold hands, and then there's a sunset while Willem Dafoe is holding a broom, and Adam Driver has a syringe and his little doctor necklace on, and a lab coat. And Natalie Portman stars as a dog.
I
She plays the voice of a talking dog.
I totally thought in the beginning that you were going for Control.
Oh.
But this has gone off the rails, and I'm 100% invested. And apparently,
It's Good Will Hunting.
okay, I've never seen that movie.
It's not Good Will Hunting at all.
I've never seen that movie again, so that says a lot. But anyway, the last thing on the list to talk about for our Microsoft episode is that apparently it has been confirmed that Microsoft has bought Gamer Juice for $75.7 billion. It's the largest gamer drink acquisition known to man. That's a fucking joke. Yeah. Microsoft, do not fucking come after us. But to wrap up this episode of the special episode of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard for just about $70 billion and Sony buying Bungie for $3.6 billion. Holy shit, none of us know what's going on. And that's about it.
There's a lot that could happen, but we won't know about it until it actually happens.
Exactly.
Fortunately, that's just how that's just how life works, sadly. But I stand by my statement. It will not be as bad as any EA acquisition ever. It just can't. That is the bar. It's so low that it's just physically not possible.
I have faith that Microsoft will make great decisions when it comes to Activision Blizzard. And I think that if there was anybody to purchase the studio or the company, I'm happy that it's Microsoft, and I think Microsoft will be able to lead the way into bringing Activision Blizzard up to a standard that it won't be a laughing stock anymore. So I'm excited to see what Microsoft can do for the employees underneath Activision Blizzard and all of its studios, and I hope that things get better for everybody there. and that everybody sort of gets a piece of justice or whatever you'd like to say that they deserve. Mike, do you have anything to add?
Drink gamer juice.
There we go. You heard it here first. Drink gamer juice. And on that note, that is the end of our special episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was just a little recap of everything that has been happening. So if you have any other questions, please let us know. I know we just ranted for a while. But on the flip side, we will see you next month. Or actually, we won't see you next month. We will see you in a couple weeks for a regular episode of the pre-review crew. We will review the games that we talked about that came out in February and speculate on the games coming out in March. So check back here in a couple weeks for the next episode of the pre-review crew. And it is the gang signing off. I hope you have a great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And I hope you have a great day. Good night, guys.